This is Let's Talk Teens, a parenting podcast sharing tips on raising amazing teenagers. We are both certified life coaches that have worked with teenagers as coaches, mentors, and teachers. We are sharing what we have found to work best when dealing with teens and tough issues.
This is Let's Talk Teens with Abbi and Cheree, episode 86. What to do when your teen is driving you nuts.
Oh, Cheree, we like to pretend that our families are just 100% bliss all the time, right? And then we don't have a kid that is just driving us nuts, right? But it happens. And it can happen quite a lot with our teenagers that we go through different just seasons. The season of they're my best buddy and we're doing so great. And then all of a sudden I bug the crap out of them and they don't even want to be by me, or I can't even say anything to them and it bugs them so bad. Or this season of maybe they like the other mom, dad better, or at least it feels that way of your spouse can do no wrong, but you're the baddie, right? And so there's lots of reasons your teen could be driving you nuts, but hopefully we have some tips on here to help you power through that because we're all going to have to power through that at some point.
As you're talking, I'm like, and this is developmentally on purpose so that we
Yes.
don't want to be with each other in the same house forever. We want them to launch. So it's okay that we drive each other nuts. This is developmentally healthy.
Well, and I've shared this before, but I'm a big journaler. And so every now and then, I'll find them and I'll be like, oh, look at this. And I pull it open and I'm like, man, I was so angsty. And I'll put like, my parents are driving me nuts. And looking back, I'm like, I don't remember that. Like, I don't remember how much we were driving each other nuts, but it's real. And it happens at every level of they're the best A+ student in every way. And they still are driving their parents nuts. So it's not just you and your kid. But the first thing to do is to be curious about it. Just take a second and go, okay, why? Why is my youth driving me nuts? And it could be, oh, they keep rolling their eyes at me, or they only like their dad right now, and then they think I'm always the mean one. Or, and I just think giving a little bit of voice, not knitting the sweater, as I've said before on this, of like, let me write a story of how my teen is awful because they're driving me nuts. But just kind of looking at facts like, oh, you know what? When they blew me off and they lied to me about going to a friend's house and they weren't really there, like that's what set me off. And I've been set off all week, right? So I think there's some power in figuring out that story of why is my youth driving me nuts?
I think the power comes in that validation of, oh, okay, this makes sense. And it would be weird if I liked that and it didn't drive me nuts? So I think that our brain really likes that validation of, okay, there is a reason I'm not just being crazy or I'm not being a bad mom or I'm not just being overly sensitive. There's some things, some facts that happen that make sense of why they are driving me nuts.
Yeah. And if you are sitting there going, I don't really have a reason, let me give you one. Their brain development, right? They are supposed to be angsty on purpose. There's a lot going on in that mind and body. So if you're like, they're just driving me nuts, that's okay too, right?
Yeah.
But the second thing that has really helped me, and it helps me when my little kids are driving me nuts, is I find one good thing and I savor it. So instead of ruminating on thoughts about, oh, they leave out their shoes and they didn't do their homework and then they lied to me about where they were, I find one, hopefully recent, sometimes I have to go a little bit further back, one good moment with my youth, and I replay that over and over in my head. So if it was this week, I would say, oh, my boys were on the couch, and when they said, hey, I want to change the channel, and I was braced for a fight, I was like, uh-oh, this isn't going to go well. And my oldest went, yeah, sure, you can pick whatever you want. Oh, that is a moment I'm going to savor because my child made the right choice, right? So you might have to think back a little bit, but find a tiny moment. I know, Cheree, I think a lot about you shared a story that one of your moms, she said, I just would focus on how well my teenager was at breathing. Like that's
Hmm.
how far off the scale they were of like how they weren't getting along so much. But hey, maybe they're really styling and be like, you know what? I'm so grateful they get themselves dressed and they've got their own style. Like find that great thing about your youth that you genuinely, it cannot be fake because you're only faking yourself and we can't do that. Something you genuinely admire, or you were like, you know what? My teen might be doing this, but they give their little sister a hug every day, and that's a win.
I love that. I think that is so important is just finding those things. Our brain is always going to find the problems. It's our negative bias brain. It's always going to light up the parts that they're failing or falling short or there's problems or where we have beef with them. but it's being that intentional of, okay, like what is going right and what do I appreciate and love about them? And where is our relationship good and what's going right? It is a redirection and it takes work to do that, but it's so important.
Well, and I love that because it does take work. And what can help with that is sometimes we need to give our teen space. Um, this one can be tricky because there's a real big difference between giving somebody appropriate space and like giving them the silent treatment, especially if you and your
Mhm.
youth have had like maybe a fight, maybe like, some words have been said or they've really like known they've crossed the line. Um, it is totally fine and appropriate and healthy to be like, you know what? I'm going to go over on my side of the house and they're going to go on their side of the house, right? But just a little reminder as a parent, when our youth tries to reach out and interact with us, and like you can tell they're stretching those adult skills of repairing a relationship, we never give them the silent treatment. We never go like, oh, I'm not talking to you, or no, we're not going over here, or whatever it is. But instead, we have to own that emotional maturity of being the parent, right? Which is we sometimes have to be the one that gives in first or apologizes when our teen is trying to repair that relationship. So we give them space when they're just being angsty and moody. Like, how many times do teens come home from school and you're like, wow, they are in a bad mood? Then let them kind of be in a bad mood over in their room or over by the TV or wherever they're at. We can give them space. But if they're trying to maybe we've had a fight and then they come up later and they're like, "Hey mom, so what's for dinner?" Right? We're not going to ignore them, but we can, answer and try to model that adult skill of repairing that relationship.
Yeah, I have two things to speak to that I just think what you said was so good is that silent treatment really, that silent treatment can be as hurtful as mean words.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just remembering, like, sometimes we think, okay, silence is better than saying horrible, mean things, but both can cut deep. So I think just remembering that as a parent, but the space part, I love that of sometimes, we've talked about this in a previous episode of sometimes like having a little reset and having some time away, some intentional time away from each other can help us calm down and release some of those big emotions and get into a better space. Sometimes it's even a night's sleep of just, I can tell like I'm tired, they're tired, we need sleep. And this is something that we're going to want to like readdress tomorrow. And that's the kind of space we want, but it's healthy space. And it's maybe even space we talk about and saying, hey, you know what? I'm feeling like you need space from me. I'm kind of needing space from you. Let's just give each other a little bit of space for the next few hours and then let's try again. But there's a plan to come back and there's a plan to talk about it or there's a plan to do something together. It's not just this like, I'm mad at you, you're mad at me. We're giving each other the silent treatment. It's planned.
Yes. And I love that because kind of my last tip that I always use whenever a parent's like, I'm struggling with my teen, I always say, spend more time with them, which will sound
Mhm.
so contradictory to our last tip that we just shared of like, give them space, right? Because there are so many times to give them space. But if you're like, my teen, like, I just feel like this is progressing and kind of becoming more of like, oh, we're not getting along and not just like oh, one day they're bugging me, we got to spend more time with them, more time um, of doing fun things together, more time of not lecturing them or teaching them something, but just having fun. Maybe we go get a soda drink. Maybe we go take a walk around the block. Like whatever your youth wants to do and thinks is fun is what we should aim to do with them.
Yeah, I have a great story of an example of this just with a recent situation in our family where our oldest son and his family actually we didn't have any interaction or very little interaction for about 2.5 years. And so it's super, we gave him too much, we gave him a lot of space and they gave us a lot of space. It was a lot of space, maybe too much space, but it just was what it was. But in that time frame, a lot of stories happened in our head. I think ours and theirs and everyone's. And my husband had this really good epiphany of like how we're just stirring this muddy cup of water because all the experiences we remember are these bad ones, right? And how to change to get rid of that muddy water, we're gonna have to pour clean water in, which is new experiences, and spending time together. And that's the clean water that comes in to get rid of the muddy water. And I think of that, obviously I'm praying for all of you that you don't have a 2.5 year break from your children. it's hard, right? But I think that as your teens are in your house, you're not going to have a 2.5 year break. But I think that concept still works. Is like, when there's conflict, it's so easy to stir that muddy water, or like you say, knit the sweater, right?
Mhm.
Stay in that story. But that spending time together and having new experiences where we're pouring in that clean water, or being like, okay, this happened and it was hard, but now let's have these good experiences together really is so vitally important. And it stops the swirl of the muddy water to have new, clean, good time with our teenagers when things are hard. So we don't get stuck in this, oh, my teen's hard. It's like, no, but I'm having these really good experiences with them too. It's like, we're
Mm.
just navigating. We're all having experiences. And sometimes the muddy water comes in, and then we need to pour clean water in, or spend time with them. So I love that, like spending time with them even when they're driving you nuts or when things are hard, because I think that gets rid of the muddy water.
Yes, well, and how I love that analogy so much. Um, because if we are creating almost that chasm of the size of the Grand Canyon between us, then
Hmm.
it's going to be so hard to find those good moments. So we got to go create those good moments of we sat and we ate ice cream together and it was fine, right? And the key
Hmm.
here is it really does have to be what's enjoyable to your youth, what can be
Yep.
small. We've talked about this before. Like keep these
Yep.
activities small, frequent, positive, and it can't be the lecture of you got to be nicer to me or you got to like it's just hey, let's put in some of that clean water. So I love that. So parents, hopefully this helps you out. And we want you to know if anything, like you're not alone in this. Our teens drive us nuts all the time, all the time. And it's normal. And we just keep adding that clean water, right? We just keep refreshing. And hopefully one of these can help you do that. So we cannot wait to see you in our next podcast episode. Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Teens with Cheree Murdock and Abbi Winslow. If you are looking for more tips to help your teenager, here's where you can find us. You can find Cheree Murdock on Instagram at Cheree Murdock Coaching or on her website, ChereeMurdock.com. You can find me, Abbi, on Instagram as Abbi Winslow or on my website, AbbiWinslow.com. Please rate and review our podcast and share with a fellow parent. Thanks for listening.